6 months of silence? You've blocked their number, deleted the photos, started to sleep through the night again. Then your phone buzzes. A message request from an unknown account. I've been in therapy. I finally understand what I did wrong. Your hand trembles. Because here's what nobody tells you. The hardest part isn't leaving a narcissist. It's staying gone when they come back. And they always come back. But here's the twist. It has nothing to do with love. There's a clinical term for this phenomenon, borrowed from an unlikely source, a vacuum cleaner. Psychologists call it hoovering, named after the Hoover brand because it describes precisely how individuals with narcissistic traits attempt to suck former partners back into their orbit. The metaphor is almost disturbingly accurate. And once you understand the psychology behind it, you'll see why the pattern repeats with such eerie consistency. The answer begins with something psychoanalyst Otto Fenichel identified back in 1938. Narcissistic supply. Think of it as psychological oxygen. For someone with narcissistic personality disorder, attention and admiration aren't just pleasant, they're survival. The DSM-5 defines NPD as a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, need for admiration, and lack of empathy, affecting approximately 1 to 2% of the population. But here's what makes the disorder so insidious. A narcissist's self-worth isn't generated internally. It must be constantly imported from external sources, like trying to fill a bucket that has no bottom. When you leave, you don't just exit a relationship, you cut off their supply. This creates a state of intense psychological discomfort that research suggests narcissists find almost intolerable. They don't grieve losing you as a person. They grieve losing the attention, control, and validation you provided. And this is where the machinery of hoovering clicks into motion. Now here's where it gets fascinating and darker than most people realize. The hoover isn't random. It's calculated, often surgical in its precision. Sometimes it arrives as a casual text. Saw something that reminded me of you? Other times it's a crisis. Health scares, financial disasters, threats of self-harm. Clinical observations have documented narcissists recruiting mutual friends to deliver messages, showing up at places their former partner frequents, or deploying what researchers call anniversary hoovering, reaching out on birthdays, holidays, or dates significant to the relationship. But the most unsettling part? These tactics work. Not because victims are weak or foolish, but because of what was happening in their brains all along. In 1981, psychologists Donald Dutton and Dutton Painter identified something called traumatic bonding, an emotional attachment that forms specifically through cycles of intermittent abuse and affection. What they discovered fundamentally changed how we understand why people struggle to leave and stay away from abusive relationships. The bond isn't despite the abuse. In a neurological sense, it's partly because of it. Here's the mechanism. The relationship begins with what's clinically termed idealization, or more colloquially, love bombing. Excessive attention, grand promises, intense connection. This floods the brain with dopamine and oxytocin, the same neurochemicals involved in falling in love and, notably, in addiction. Then comes the shift. Devaluation, criticism, withdrawal, cruelty. The brain, now accustomed to those chemical rewards, goes into a state of desperate seeking. This is where B.F. Skinner's research on intermittent reinforcement becomes crucial. In his work during the 1950s, Skinner demonstrated that unpredictable rewards create stronger behavioral patterns than consistent ones. A slot machine is more addictive than a guaranteed payout. Similarly, a partner who is sometimes loving and sometimes cruel creates a more powerful psychological bond than one who is consistently kind. The target becomes addicted to those increasingly rare moments when the narcissist is warm again, constantly trying to earn back what was freely given at the start. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Research from Georgia Health Sciences University, published in 2011, found that when we experience fear alongside attachment, our brains don't respond the way we'd expect. Fear mixed with bonding actually releases dopamine. The very emotion that should repel us, terror, chemically reinforces the attachment. The brain interprets surviving a frightening experience with someone as a reason to bond more deeply with them. And there's more. Neuroscientist Helen Fisher's research, along with work by Marziti in 1999, revealed that during intense romantic attachment, serotonin levels drop to ranges similar to those found in obsessive-compulsive disorder. This could explain why victims of narcissistic abuse report being unable to stop thinking about their abuser, why the thoughts become intrusive, repetitive, compulsive. The brain has been fundamentally rewired. So when the narcissist reappears months or years later, your nervous system remembers. Not just emotionally, chemically. The Hoover triggers the old pathways, hope, relief, that familiar dopamine surge. Even when you intellectually know it's manipulation, your body responds as if rescue has arrived. This is the part that survivors often find hardest to accept. Clinical research consistently shows that hoovering is almost never about genuine remorse or change. Studies examining long-term outcomes for individuals with NPD indicate that without sustained, specialized therapeutic intervention, often years of it, meaningful transformation is exceptionally rare. When narcissists apologize during a hoover, researchers note these apologies typically contain qualifiers that subtly shift responsibility. "I'm sorry I wasn't more patient with you," rather than "I'm sorry I hurt you." The phrasing is revealing. And here's the final, crucial piece. Narcissists often maintain what clinicians describe as a rotation of former partners, a reserve of potential supply sources they can return to when current sources diminish. Research suggests it's typically easier for a narcissist to recycle old supply than cultivate new sources. They already know what worked, what vulnerabilities to exploit, what promises resonate. They may wait months, even years, returning precisely when they sense an opening or experience a deficit elsewhere. Understanding this pattern offers something unexpected: freedom. Not from the pull that may persist, but from the confusion. The narcissist returns not because you're irreplaceable, but because you were reliable supply. That realization, while painful, is also profoundly liberating. It means the pattern was never about your worth. It was always about their need. Breaking free requires recognizing that the pull you feel isn't evidence of love. It's evidence of how trauma bonds can hijack our neurology. Experts recommend clear strategies: maintaining no contact, blocking all communication channels, building support networks with people who understand these dynamics, working with trauma-informed therapists, and practicing self-compassion for how difficult this process truly is. The Hoover will likely come. What changes is your response. Because gradually, with understanding and support, that text loses its power. The manipulation becomes transparent. And you remember not just who you were before, but discover who you're becoming now. Someone who knows their value doesn't require anyone else's recognition. If this resonates, A-Like helps others find their way here. Subscribe for more gentle explorations of the mind. And remember, healing isn't linear, but it is possible.